One of the things that I said in my previous video is that Yelan should be played like Yelan and not like Xingqiu. Otherwise, you're going to get to these weird conclusions that she's just a Xingqiu 2.0 at C0. Obviously, with Constellation, she completely wipes the floor with him, but this is something that I've seen in a lot of the comments. A lot of people have said, look, at C0, she's no different. You're not going to use her movement abilities. And even in the other videos you showed with an F2P Yelan, you just played her like a brain-dead Xingqiu. Well, this is completely utter rubbish. So when you go and read the comment section, please do take it with a grain of salt. So let me just clear up a lot of things and show you an actual like VOD review of a bit of a different way in which you should be playing Yelan at C0. So first of all, in my other little video, so Mr. Slasher right here, I did not use QN1E. In fact, I used QEN1. And the reason why we want to do it sort of in this way with Yelan is due to the fact that we can trigger an additional exquisite throw attack. In other words, you can get 6 done in about a 1 second window. And the reason why you do this is so that the additional damage that you would have lost by switching to your Kokomi in this case is sort of mitigated, because the moment you swap to another character and you use their elemental burst, basically you're sacrificing a bit of damage. You're not triggering any of the exquisite throws, and this is something Xingqiu suffers from. When you use him in something like the Raiden National, after you press his Q and then his E and then you go into Raiden's elemental burst, there is a period of effectively 2 seconds that you're not triggering anything. You can of course use an N1 there with Xingqiu, but it's going to take some time. You can use an animation cancel on his E, but the problem is that's going to also then cost you a bit of stamina and so on. And in the latest Power Burst, if you're inflicted with cryo and you waste stamina, it is very painful. Yelan doesn't use any stamina. She can very quickly get behind enemies. She does not freeze you with your E ability. That is already way different. The very functional way in which you're supposed to squeeze out the most damage, and to sort of paraphrase some of the people in the comment section here, is very different to how you use her than you would with Xingqiu. In fact, let me just do a bit of a VOD review here and you can sort of see exactly what I mean. So look at what I'm doing here with Yelan. First of all, I'm repositioning very quickly. I'm getting all the enemies, I'm grouping them up here, I'm using an AoE wide freeze. You can't do this with Xingqiu that easily. Good luck trying to do it with this mob. And now that I've got all these enemies right here, look at what I'm doing. I'm sort of just very quickly taking care of them, and there we go. Right at the end, I used my Yelan then to just sort of clean up, and now we're sort of ready. Look there, again for the next rotation. Even though I did not even use her Q like I would have used it with Xingqiu, continuously attacking with either Sucrose or Klee, I still used it for like the intended purpose, freezing the enemies, getting the damage ramp right at the end, and then of course doing lots of damage. And you'll see now what I did exactly. Did you see what I did there with Yelan as well? I very quickly avoided a lot of damage and so on, but you'll see me doing some other interesting things with her as well. So we're just sort of waiting for the rotation to come in. We're going to hit the enemy, and this is the thing you might not have noticed in that very short sequence. What did Yelan do right here to the enemy? Just have a bit of a quick VOD review. Look at what happens to the enemy when I switch to Yelan. Interrupted. You can't do 2 interruptions like that onto the enemy whilst you're waiting for your other character's cooldowns to come online with Xingqiu. Again, fundamentally, the character at C0 has got access to tech and abilities that you do not have with Xingqiu, and these sorts of things do matter in the end. And look at that, now I've got the enemy frozen, now I can do melt, I can now sort of use my animation cancels. I've got all the stamina in the world, even though I'm inflicted. You can see a little Klee is inflicted with cryo. I can use up all Klee's stamina, because what can I do with Yelan? I can use her to sort of reposition very quickly, and well, this is just me playing Klee correctly, but look at that, I triggered a quick 51 vaporize. You can't do that quickly with Xingqiu. You'll need to be within Bennett's elemental burst to trigger anything close to that. You'll need Mona's Omen, you'll need a Kazuha, you'll need all sorts of things to just quickly do that at C0, and here is my Yelan. This is the Yelan I used. There's the UID, Favonia's Warbow. There are her talent levels. This is exactly what she has. There are constellations. There's enough. This is as F2P as you can get on a Yelan. And this is what's like so interesting to me, is when people refuse to acknowledge the potential of this character and to play her properly. They don't understand like how she is so different from Xingqiu. And you might be like saying, well, look, in the Spiral Abyss, all that matters is meta, and I don't agree. You've got a timer here. This timer says you've got 3 minutes on 2 chambers for every floor, and if you can complete it, you get 3 stars. Nothing else matters. It doesn't matter how fast you do it. You don't get any extra primo gems for doing it fast. In fact, there's a different principle that a lot of people don't seem to understand, and let me just quickly sort of explain it here. If the damage that your Rider National, let's say this is Rider National, does peaks at about, let's say, 51k, then that is good for all intents and purposes. But there's nothing wrong in having a team that's got like a slightly lower damage potential, let's say here at about 48k effective DPS per second, because the variability that you can see here, in other words the variance here, is more than enough for you to beat the Spiral Abyss. This is the thing no one talks about. The Spiral Abyss might have an implicit requirement that you'll effectively need to do, let's say, 38k effective damage per second, like over a sustained period. But if there are different teams that can meet this threshold, you don't need to play meta. You don't need to be like this guy here who's like, oh well, if I just use my Hu Tao, I can do it so much faster and blah blah blah. No one cares. What a lot of people don't seem to understand is all of these abilities map back to an effective damage distribution. And for the most part, even if a meta team has got something like here in the blue, if the purple is good enough, it is good enough. But you will never ever get these insights. You'll never ever get what I'm showing you here if you're just going to stick to the Theorycraft route. If you're not going to play around, see what else you can do with a character. And for me, the biggest thing that I've been seeing in the Spiral Abyss with Yelan is her ability to do AoE hydro damage, to do AoE vaporizers and so on. So look here as well on the first floor. These are just some of the clips that I've got in the background. So immediately what I'm doing, I'm repositioning, grabbing all the enemies, freezing them all of here together, doing a quick animation queue into Sucrose, slapping them very, very hard with Klee. And what we're now going to do is we're going to group them up all again, and look at that vaporize. You can just hit them all with a vaporize and now use our elemental burst. There are many different variations you could do this. You could use Yelan's Q earlier, but at the end of the day, in my sort of experience, once again, when you look at the damage distribution, there are different ways in which you can get more or less the same outcome to do this in about 940 in most of the runs. As another example, look here what I'm going to do with Yelan. I'm going to vaporize for 65,000. This is no Bennett, no Kazuha, no nothing. So here I'm with Klee, very, very quickly doing this. And look at this very quick repositioning, 65,000k. In case you missed it, let me just sort of rewind a bit. So there it is, there is little Klee. And she's just throwing bombs, pretty awesome. And now I'm going to go into Yelan. Look at that, 65,000. You can't do this that quickly with Xingqiu unless you're using a Bennett. And remember, this is a C0 Klee. There's nothing amazing about this Klee. There's no defense drop. There it is. There she is. There's nothing, no constellations, nothing. So at the end of the day, for Yelan to do this so quickly, I mean, it just shows you how remarkable she is. And you know what she can do now? She can absolutely immobilize the enemy with a breakthrough barb shot, which is also going to do a bit of damage and so on. And that is just the power of this character. She's just got that much more to her kit than what Xingqiu has. So for me, at the end of the day, when it comes to Yelan versus Xingqiu, they have very different functional aspects to their kit. And if you really, really play well with Yelan and you know how to reposition, and also understand that for any given team, there will always be 1 or 2 characters that will take a better field time because other characters are on cooldown, you might then sort of understand that a bit of repositioning and so on with Yelan won't actually mess up rotations. In fact, if you rethink your rotations, it'll be something new that you can weave in. And at the end of the day, do you want optionality, or do you just want to sort of stand there, use a Q, waste stamina to animation cancel or potentially freeze yourself, or do you want to have the option to quickly reposition and potentially getting an attack that can easily disable or knock enemies away? I mean, it's just, come on, there's so many differences between the two. I cannot take people seriously that say that they're the same. If you guys want to play a like Xingqiu, go ahead. but you're definitely missing out on the full utility of the character. It's the same with characters like Jean, for instance. She's got so much utility in being able to disable the enemies, and what might seem like a 1 or 2 seconds of, oh, you're wasting time, can actually end up being very, very substantial if the enemies are enemies like the Whopper Flowers that will just continuously go underground or dodge unless you can disable them. And this is one of the things that Yelan does so well, and Xingqiu doesn't really do at all. So for me, once again, the final conclusion is that if you play Yelan like you're supposed to play Yelan, you'll have a good time and you'll understand that at C0, she's anything but Xingqiu.